Friends, welcome to the lecture series on ancient and medieval political thought. We are talking about the module second. Your module second is on Plato. Today's lecture is about Plato's philosophy of education. Tomorrow we will talk about Plato's scheme of education. Before that, we should understand what is the underlying philosophy behind education. And friends, in Greece, we find the origins of many of our educational policies and educational systems today. The root of our modern universities, the root of the modern philosophies of education, the root of modern educational models can be found in ancient Greece. And Greece is the originating source of the Western civilization even. The Greek ideas about education and their practices of education have been very influential all over the world, let alone in Greece and Europe. One of Rome's greatest contributions to the mankind has been that it carried the Greek tradition to all over the Western lands. So the study of ancient Greek civilization, friends, it gives us valuable lessons about who should be a citizen, what is the virtue of civic bodies or civic associations, what is the virtue of civic education, who is a good ruler. The founding ideas of these questions will be found in the ancient Greek history. And friends, the famous Greek philosopher Plato was said to be one of the greatest teacher the mankind has ever produced. So Plato has proposed a very systematic idea about education, and that can be said to be one of the earliest ever written record on a system of education. And it was Plato who proposed for the first time in human history a systematic account of what is an educational system is, what is a teacher is, what is a student is, what is a curriculum is, and why should we study, and why should a teacher teach, and why should a student learn from the teacher. So the philosophy underlying all these factors you can find in the writings of Plato. And later Plato has been severely criticized, but friends, modern idea of education certainly belongs to Plato's idea of education. And Plato, in the beginning, received a typical Athenian education. An Athenian youth get education from public institution, not private institution. During Plato's youthhood, Plato received public education, not private education. And in Plato's Athens, during his childhood, education was entrusted in public authorities. Education was not a private commodity in ancient Athens. And Greek people never believed in private education, which we have today. We have private universities, private tuition center, private colleges, private universities, etc. And friends, these ideas, the Greek people never endorsed because they never believed in the virtue of private education. Because virtue is always in the public education. And friends, in the Republic, Plato outlined a normal education for a Greek boy, a very normal education for a Greek boy. That a Greek boy born in the Athenian city-state, according to Plato, will get a normal education, which he had himself received during his childhood. That a normal boy in his city-state, that in Plato's ideal state, that Plato had imagination of an ideal state, which he had documented in the book Republic. And in Plato's ideal state, a Greek boy will read and write and study the poets. Read, write, and study the poets. But during Plato's time in ancient Athens, it is not Plato's idea. During his childhood time, historians will say that Athenian women didn't get proper education. The aim of education for an Athenian woman was more at the level of training. That Athenian education during Plato's time was meant to give women basic training in household activities. That education for women enabled them master in domestic tasks, domestic chores, household chores, rather than intellectual. Women are not capable of intellectual activity according to ancient Greek people. It's not Plato's idea. That was a practice during ancient society. And most Athenian girls in the ancient world were only educated in their home. They never go to schools. They never go to public funded educational institutions. They will get education from their home alone. And of course, a few women's schools existed, but such schools taught women subjects like singing, music, dancing, and sports. A little bit of sports. And women are basically trained in singing. That women are only good for singing. And they are good for only for music. And they are only good for dancing. The most important part of Greek education was culture and civic education, which was meant for men only. And this cultural education and civic education is the main component of Plato's scheme of education. And Plato was the first person in the whole history of Western world, in the Western civilization, in the whole history of Western philosophy, to suggest that equal education should be given to both men and women. And Plato was probably influenced by the system of education developed in the Sparta, like Socrates. Socrates was very much fond of Sparta. So Plato was also fond of Spartan system of education. So therefore, we can see a Spartan form of education system in the writings of Plato in the Republic, in the book Republic. And we know that Plato as an individual, not as a philosopher, as an individual, a normal Athenian youth, as a normal Athenian youth, grew up in the Athenian city during the time of war, the Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War began before he was born, and it lasted until he was 23 years old. Peloponnesian War, when the war ended, Plato was aged 23. And during the Peloponnesian War, as I have told you in the previous lectures, that Athens was defeated and a Spartan system of 30 tyrants was established, and democracy was replaced by 30 tyrants. It was a type of oligarchic form of government. And Athens was demoralized. And Plato was also broken by the scenario developed after the Peloponnesian War. So he had seen the savage tyranny of the 30 tyrants. And later we have seen that democracy has been re-established by dethrowing the 30 tyrants, and a democratic constitution was established. But what happened was that after the 30 tyrants was dethroned and a democratic constitution was established in Athens, what happened was that Athens subjected Socrates for a trial for charges of treason, for corrupting the Athenian youth. And some writers comment that during the trial, Plato himself acted as a defense attorney on behalf of Socrates during the trial. And the fact that he lost the defense, that he was not able to save Socrates from conviction, and his beloved teacher was sentenced to death, that Plato was so desperate. Plato was broken. And in order to preserve his memories, Plato has written extensively on Socrates. And Socrates was the main character of most of his dialogues. And friends, Plato founded Academy in the year 387 BC. An academy is the first institution of higher learning in ancient Greece. It was the first institution of higher learning in ancient Greece. An academy became the intellectual center in the whole of Greek city-states. And in a sense, academy was the equivalent of the first university in the history of Europe. It was the first equivalent of the first university in the whole history of Europe. And as I told you in the previous lecture, it continued almost 1,000 years until it was destroyed by Justinian in 529 AD, the then Roman emperor. And the ultimate object of all activities at the academy was to achieve the final philosophic truth. And it was teaching students how to attain philosophic truth. And Plato dedicated his life to the vindication of Socrates' memory and teachings. And Plato adopted the Socratic method of teaching in his academy. And the Socratic method of teaching was question and answer. The teacher raises a question and students answer. And teacher again raises question and students answer. And this way, students are convinced of their ignorance and they will try to change their arguments in favor of the truth. And in the academy, Plato included philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and geometry as part of the curriculum. And it is also interesting to note that, friends, 2 women students were members of the academy. There were 2 women students in the academy during Plato's time. And the academy was a great success. And Aristotle, the greatest philosopher of all time, Aristotle, came to Plato's academy in 367 BC. At the age of 17, Aristotle was aged 17 then, when he went to Plato's academy, and remained in academy until Plato died in 347 BC. And in memory of Socrates, Plato wrote almost 34 dialogues. Dialogues means books, 34 books. And many books are most of these books are not single books, they are volumes. And even the book Republic includes several volumes. And 34 dialogues, as I told you, and the Republic was written during the middle of these 34 volumes. 34 dialogues. It was written during the middle of the 34 volumes, the 34 dialogues he had written. It was a general consensus that the first part of the dialogues, that first dialogue, second dialogue, and third dialogue, and during third dialogue you will see a mature Plato. During middle Plato or middle dialogues, you will see a growing Plato, intellectually growing Plato. During the time of intellectually growing Plato, you will see Plato has written the book Republic. So the first dialogue was written by Plato for the immortalization of his mentor, his great teacher, his guru, Socrates. And in the first dialogues, we will see a uniquely distinctive Socratic philosophy of education. A uniquely distinct Socratic philosophy of education in the first dialogues which Plato had written. Beginning with the Republic, which was written during the middle Plato time, and the following later dialogues, Plato proposed Plato's own ideas of education and Plato's own philosophy of education. But during the first phases of dialogues, or first 10 to 12 dialogues, you will see that, friends, what Plato has written about Socrates was Socratic ideas about the philosophy of education. But beginning with the book Republic, you will see Plato's own idea of education, or Plato's philosophy of education. And friends, one of the astounding facts in the history of human civilization is the fact that the first coherent, systematic, and logical treatise on government and education in the whole process of Western civilization was written by Plato, and which contained in the book The Republic. And Plato treats the subject of education in the book Republic. And in the book Republic, education, which basically the book Republic is not purely about education. The book Republic is purely about city. I mean, modern polis. What does it mean to say a good government is? That is what Plato inquires. or some other writers argue that this is book on justice. What constitutes justice? But the point is that when we interpret in the book Republic, Plato considers the subject of education is an integral and vital part of the well-being of human society. The well-being of a human society is dependent upon a good education system. And Plato believed the ultimate aim of education is to help people know the idea of God, or idea of the good. What is a perfect life? What is truth? Why do we live? Why do we make relationship? Why do we have a society? Why do we have rulers? Why are we citizens? What is life? What is beauty? These are all questions about truth. So according to Plato, purpose of education is to realize these questions. And for Plato, a just society always tries to give the best education to all its members. Which is a good society according to Plato? The society that gives finest education to the members of its family. So the polis is a family, a community. And if you want to make the polis a good community, give best education to its members. So in the Republic, therefore Plato set up or outlines a theory of what education means for an individual as well as for the state. What does it mean to say education for both the citizen and the state? And also focuses on what to teach and what material to teach to the future guardians of the state. Each citizen is the guardian of the state, the protector of the state. So what to teach the citizen and what should be the content of the curriculum. So friends, implicit in the philosophy of Plato's education, implicit in the philosophy of Plato's education is an underlying idea that who is a good student and who is the student to be educated? Who is the person to be educated? Which Plato is more concerned about? That friends, we teach students and all of you are students, but are you a real student? That's very important for Plato. All of you sit in the classroom, but Plato never considers all of you as good students. Who is a good student who is sitting in the classroom? And Plato has his own notion about who is a good student who is sitting in the classroom. And who is to be taught? Who needs education? Plato is very much concerned about that aspect. And Plato explains his philosophy of the person, human person, that for understanding or for discovering who needs education, Plato extensively talks about who the person is in the book Republic, but not only in the book Republic, he talks about who the person is. What is the content of a person is in the books like the Republic, then Timaeus, the Laws. In these three books, Plato talks about the character of person. In Platonic philosophy, friends, the highest faculty of a man, the highest faculty for man is reason, which is rooted in the spiritual soul. The highest faculty of a human person is reason. A good person needs to have a good reasoning mind, and that is rooted in the human soul. In the laws, Plato states that the soul is one of the first existence and prior to all our physical bodies, and it governs all the changes and modifications of our bodies. That your physical body is not the first existence in our world. And what is the first existence in our world? It is the soul. The human soul is the first existence, and that exists prior to the physical manifestation of human bodies. And that soul determines all the changes and modifications in our physical bodies. And in the book Republic, he proposes a tripartite nature of the soul. That human soul has three parts or three variations. The soul consists of three parts. The human soul consists of three parts. The rational part, the courageous or the spirited part, and third, the appetitive part. Friends, the rational part, the human soul has three parts. The rational part, you have a rational part. Then you have a courageous part or the spirited part, and your body got an appetitive part. The following, friends. So your body got human body. That is a physical manifestation of the human soul. The physical manifestation of the human soul got three parts. What are them? A rational part, a courageous or spirited part, and the appetitive part. And in the book Timaeus, Plato locates where these parts exist. And Plato says, the rational parts are located in the head. The rational part of your soul is located in your head. And the spirited part is located in your breast. The spirited part is located in your breast. And the appetitive part is located in the stomach. And who is a good person, friends? Who is a good person? A good person is not the one who gives so much importance to the stomach part of the body, or the stomach part of the soul. Rather, a great person or a philosopher or very intelligent person gives more emphasis to the head part of the soul. So the soul, especially the rational soul, is immortal. The rational soul is the immortal part of human life, which has pre-existent knowledge. Even before your body knows, your soul knows many things. Your soul knows truth even before your body knows truth. Your body has only basic functions. What are the basic functions of your body? That is eat and procreation. That is the basic function of human body. But beyond that, human body got many other functions. That function is the most important function of human body. So, Plato says, a human soul develops, particularly its rational part. The rational part is the head part of the human body or human soul. That evolves through different stages. That evolves from ignorance to true knowledge. A human soul, a rational soul, evolves from ignorance to true knowledge. And the lowest stage of your knowledge is imagination. Friends, an average human being will not have true knowledge. An average human being will have only imagination of things. That is what Plato says. Here, your human mind confronts with only images of things, images of reality. That is what Plato calls cave. That is shadow. We only see shadow, images. So we have only images of true reality. That is the character of an average human individual. And from this stage, a human being has to be educated to true knowledge. And in this stage, friends, simply human beings have sensory experiences or sensory perception. What their senses tell them what it is, which they understand as reality. That is, appearance will become reality. What appears before you will become your reality. And what appears before you will be understood by your senses, 5 senses. This is called sensory perception. That knowledge acquired through senses are not true knowledge for Plato. So complicated, right? Very complicated, Plato. So knowledge acquired through senses are not true knowledge. Knowledge acquired through rational mind is true knowledge. But in the first stage, in the ignorant stage, a human being attains knowledge only through imagination because he has only sensory perception. And man is not aware that he is observing such a thing as images. At this stage, your appetitive soul works, that your stomach works. Your stomach is working here because you are only concerned with the body functions, where you give importance to appetites, your stomach. Then a further stage develops. As you get education or you get exposed to more realities, your human mind again evolves into a higher knowledge, which according to Plato is called belief. Belief. First, image. A human mind develops image. Second, a human mind develops belief. Belief is a higher stage of human knowledge. From a lowest stage of ignorance, human mind evolves to a higher stage of knowledge. That is called the second stage, that is belief. That is, you will get some kind of certainty about things around you. But Plato says this stage is not also the final stage of knowledge. This stage is also the appetitive stage, because here also your stomach works. And then there is a third stage. That is, in the first stage, that is a visible world, because you have seen things through senses. And the second stage, belief, that is also a visible world, because you have seen truth through senses. You will go to knowledge in the form of an intelligible world, visible world to an invisible world. You will find out truth in terms of invisibility. In the previous two stages, you have seen knowledge in terms of visibility. And here you will see knowledge in terms of invisibility. That is intelligible world. The first two one, visible world, which you will see only through senses. And that is not true knowledge. True knowledge comes in the intelligible world. And the third stage, a thinking stage develops. And great lights are found that you will come out of the cave. You will come out of the fire. You will come out of the shadow. You will come out of the cave and come out of the vent and enter into the great light in the world. And this stage, you will transform from a world of mere opinion to a world of thinking. This far, your images and your beliefs developed out of opinions. Now you started thinking, and in the thinking stage, you will apply human reason. And friends, there will be a fourth stage in the evolution of a human person, the last stage of the attainment of perfect knowledge. perfect intelligence or intelligible world that will come to you. Intelligible world represents the mind as completely, released from sensible objects, that you have relieved your mind from your stomach, the concerns of your stomach, and your mind is more attached to the concerns of your head. At this stage, your mind is dealing directly with the forms of things, FORM, forms. Plato says, in this stage, your knowledge of particulars will be changed, and you will be more concerned about knowledge about the universals, what is truth, what is beauty, what is morals, what is ethics. These kinds of issues you will deal with during this stage. So in short, friends, there is a divided line. As I told you, there is a partition wall in the cave, and the divided line, there will be ignorance and there will be knowledge. And from ignorance, you will come to knowledge through different stages. And these different stages, according to Plato, are the world of intelligence, the highest thinking. Then the world of thinking, the second. The world of belief, the third. And the world of imagination, the lower stage. Once more. The world of intelligence for the highest and perfect human being. And the world of thinking, the second stage of knowledge. And the belief, the third stage of knowledge. And imagination, the fourth stage of knowledge, or that is just ignorance. So friends, from the lower stage of imagination to the higher stage of intelligence, not all people can easily move. Not all people in the world can easily move. It's a very painful experience. And who will lead you to that very perfect world? It is education and educators, or the philosopher. Therefore, in Plato's system of education, teacher has so much significance that Plato says, both men and women in their personhood should get equal education. In the Republic, Plato states like this: if women are to have the same duties as men, they must have the same nurture and education. Then women must be taught music and gymnastics and also the art of war, which they must practice like the men, which he states in the book 5 of Republic. So the teacher's role is to be both a master and a mentor for his student. Teacher has great role in Plato's educational scheme. Regarding the teaching of the vocational subjects, the teacher would train the students in order for them to learn the arts, the crafts, and the job skills necessary. Teacher will train the students in the vocational stage, not in the higher stage, in the mathematical stage or in the logical stage or in the philosophical stage. Before that during your childhood, a teacher will train you for vocational skills like art, craft, and other job skills necessary for survival in the human world. And students during this phase learn by observing the teacher, participate in the activity under the direction of the expert teacher, and the student imitates the movement and the skills of the teacher. A good student is expected to imitate the movements and skills of the teacher, practicing until he or she has mastered the skill. The moment you have mastered the skill, you will be liberated from the supervision of the teacher. So the student will be an apprentice who abide by the methods of the master. And Plato feels, friends, Plato feels that learning will take place more easily when the learned means you students, when the learned and the teacher, when the student and the teacher have a great love for one another. That's a very important aspect of Platonic education, that there should be love between teacher and the students. For thus, the young students will be willing to listen to the teacher and try to emulate him because the student loves the teacher. And the teacher must have a deep affection for his or her students. In order to be a successful teacher, a teacher needs to have a deep affection for his students. And about this teacher-student relationship, Plato says that the teacher-student relationship involves like this: an older teacher, a teacher who is aged than the students, and a younger student. And this difference is very important in Plato's education, that there should be a great age difference between teacher and the students. It's very important for Plato. For Plato, if teacher is not aged, that teacher is not a good teacher. Because a teacher-student relationship should involve power relationship, or power struggle. Because there should be a hierarchy. And Phaedrus, one of Plato's books, Phaedrus must invite and then accept Socrates. That in Plato's scheme, Socrates and Plato, they're teacher and student. Phaedrus must invite and then accept Socrates to be a person of authority. In so doing, Phaedrus is a character in the book, in the Platonic dialogue Phaedrus must also be willing to undergo any change that Socrates may impart. So in the classical Greek, the teacher-student relationship was necessarily a love relationship. Because in Greece, also in Plato's scheme of education, there existed eros. Eros is a Greek word for sex and love. So there existed a kind of eros in the teachings of Plato, that there should be eros in the teacher-student relationship. That, Plato says, a teacher should address a student with deep affectionate words like darling, dear. So these words for Plato are very important, because students should feel that teacher loves the students. Because teaching is, according to Plato, or learning is, according to Plato, should not be a laborious activity if you love that activity. So only if you love that activity, that will become an entertainment. So for Plato, learning should become an entertainment, not a laborious activity. So for Plato, a successful teacher is like this. In the book of Phaedrus, Socrates first teases Phaedrus, the character in that book. Socrates first teases Phaedrus. Phaedrus was a student. Phaedrus, in order to establish Socrates' authority as a teacher over his students. and also provoked Phaedrus by teasing him, so that Phaedrus will become more agitated against Socrates. Then Socrates questioned him. So, in the book of Phaedrus, Plato says like this: after Phaedrus finishes giving the Lycia speech, Socrates says to Phaedrus that, more than that, it is miraculous, my friend. I am quite overcome by it. Look, Socrates used the word my friend, but initially Socrates teased Phaedrus. So Socrates also shows Phaedrus with words like with the words of endearment throughout his teaching. Like the words Plato referred are my friend. Socrates uses the word my friend, my darling. And then Plato says, Socrates used the word, you are a darling and truly golden. These are the words Socrates used in the book of Phaedrus to endear his student Phaedrus. So therefore, Plato's curriculum is carefully chosen. Which include training for the spirit, music. So if you are trained in music, you will get a good spirit. Then training for the body, gymnastics. You will be trained in gymnastics so that your body will be good looking. Then more difficult academic subjects are added when you develop. So at different ages, you will get different types of subjects. So friends, Plato gives emphasis to mathematics, to gymnastics, then music, physical education. There are 4 important curriculum in Plato's education. The first one is music. Then second is gymnastics. Third, mathematics. And fourth, dialectics. These are the 4 important curriculum in Plato's academy. One is music, second gymnastics, third mathematics, and fourth dialectics. And a student passes through different subjects under these headings with the different subheadings. These are 4 main headings, and under these main headings, you will be taught different subjects under different subheadings. So we see that Plato supported a type of vocational education. An education to complete your role in life, as an education to be a producer, education to be a guardian of the state, a military soldier, and education to be a philosopher king. So, an important maxim proposed by Plato is that the quality of the state depends on the kind of education that the members of the state receive. That's a very important point, friends. If you get a quality education, then your state is good. So Plato followed the question-answer method employed by Socrates. Especially at the advanced level, higher studies level, Plato advanced a question-answer method employed by Socrates, as I told you in the first part of this lecture. So by using penetrating questions, the teacher can go beneath the surface of things which you have seen by your senses and arrive at purely intellectual understanding. That someone smiles at you, that's your senses perceived it. But what is the meaning of that, smile? Is it forgery? Is it cheating? Or is it love? So that is an intellectual question. A good student should be able to understand not the smile, but the meaning of that smile. So that way, your knowledge should reach at a purely intellectual level. So a good teacher must become a dialectician who does not permit the student to accept the appearance as reality. A good teacher never permits his student to accept appearance as reality. Rather, a good teacher allows the student use his eyes of the soul to perceive the real meaning of things. So the teacher thus brings out the truth which is in the mind of the student. So truth is in your mind, that is not in the objects. Truth is in your mind. A good teacher, through a dialectical method, a question answer method, will try to bring the truth inside your mind, because truth is within you. It is not outside you. Truth is within you, because you have that capacity to understand truth, and it is only a good teacher can bring that truth out of your mind. So Plato used, as I told you, a dialectical method. Then Plato also used imaginary situations as a pedagogy, in which Plato asked his students to project themselves into cases, problem cases. In modern day we call case studies, and call them solve problems by posing ifs and buts, IFS, ifs and buts, BUTS, ifs and buts, pros and cons. So the purpose of education, therefore, Plato, is directed towards the attainment of man's highest good, to find out true happiness, eudaimonia, which I have told you in one of my earlier lectures. The purpose of life is to find out eudaimonia. So why do you get education? To find out eudaimonia. So Plato accepts. In short, I'm going to wind up this lecture, friends. Plato accepted the Socratic identification of virtue with knowledge, which Plato illustrates in the book Protagoras. That is, virtue is knowledge. Virtue is knowledge. So if virtue is knowledge, in Protagoras, Socrates says it can be taught. It can be taught. And how Socrates teaches virtue can be found in the book Meno. How virtue can be taught is found in the book Meno. And Republic just remind that, just the book Republic just remind that it is only the philosopher who has true knowledge. Only the philosopher who has true knowledge of good life. So you should attain happiness by the pursuit of virtue, which means to become in as like to God as possible for man to become. Friends, with this, I am winding up this lecture. Plato's philosophy of education. And now the floor is open for discussion, friends.